Welcome to our next episode. This is all about aging. We're going to be looking at what women lose when we age, unfortunately, but then how to get it back. This is going to be in the context of fitness. So, we're going to be talking about strength training and functional mobility and how to be as independent and strong and healthy as possible as we age. So, we're going to be reviewing the latest research on the age-related declines that do happen to us as women, what that means for our day-to-day lives, what it means for our future independence, because obviously the decisions we're making today, maybe in our 30s, 40s, even 50s, that's going to impact us down the road as we get older. We're going to be looking at what fitness and also nutritional interventions are the most powerful to age well and also move well for decades to come. That is absolutely my goal. And we're going to be looking at what strength targets can be great benchmarks for you if you're under 50 and over 50, they're a little bit different. If you're over 50, we're going to talk about strength training. And if you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, yes, I know I need a strength train, but it can be a little bit vague. So we're going to give a little bit more nuance to it. And we're also going to be looking at these strength targets so you know something that's reasonable to hit to be really strong and to, again, counteract these declines that we're going to be talking about in this episode. So if you're new here, this is the Feminine Strength Podcast. This is where we share innovative strategies for women to sustainably build a strong, fit body while supporting their hormonal health and their nervous system resilience. I am your host. My name is Jess Mather. I'm a strength and rehab professional with over 14 years of experience helping thousands of people around the world now online become stronger, healthier, and happier in their body. So in all my other episodes, except one, I leave a secret word in the episode. And I forgot my last one on self-defense training. But just so you know, I'm going to drop in a secret word in this episode. And if you catch 8 of those secret words, then I'll give 10% off the Feminine Strength Training Program. So again, listen for that secret word on this episode. And then if you collect 8, we'll give you 10% off the Fem Strength Program. So aging is not what it used to be. We used to think that grandmas couldn't lift weights. We used to think that, once you're over 40, you're done for. We used to think that strength training was just super risky, and it can be. And now that's not the case. We are learning so much more about strength training. We see how vital lifting weights is, especially as we get older in our 40s, in our 50s, and beyond. When I started working in physical therapy back in 2013, there was a vast difference between the people who took care of themselves throughout their life. They were active, they were eating well, and the people who didn't. Significant difference in their decline. We have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. And again, the research backs this up. It says, hey, we can actually do something about it, and it doesn't have to take that much time and effort. It really, really doesn't. Usually it's less work than we think it is. Okay. So we're going to talk a lot about muscle building and strength. Muscle is often touted as the fountain of youth, and I believe that. My dad used to ask me, "Did you take your exercise pill today?" Right? Instead of pills, medication, "Did you take your exercise pill today?" Because exercise is a form of medication. So personally, I'm constantly on this mission to slowly build more strength and more muscle. I just want to preface this as we're going to talk about building muscle today. Building muscle does not mean you have to get super jacked. Okay, because a lot of women, they don't want to put on a lot of muscle, they don't want to look bulky. Women can, in their opinion, look bulky. It's all subjective. If you decide if you look bulky or not with a bunch of muscle on you, that takes a lot of time and a lot of food. But putting on muscle doesn't mean you have to look really jacked. I'm 115 pounds, so I'm generally quite petite, and I have a significant amount of muscle on just because my body composition. So I have more muscle mass and a lower body fat. So I want to throw that out there as when I say, it's a good idea to keep building muscle. It doesn't mean you're getting like bigger and bigger and more bulky. There's a way to do so where your weight generally stays the same, whatever your happy weight is, but you have more muscle on your body than fat. So just throwing that out there. So let's talk about the hard stats on aging. I'm so sorry to expose you to this. I originally heard about a lot of these stats when I took a continuing education course for my therapy license on aging, and it was quite a bleak continuing ed course. But as I had to take my dog in for a surgery. He's an older dog, And the surgeon had said to me, remember, aging is not a disease. Aging is not a disease, because of course I'm worried about my dog going into surgery. He's old, but aging isn't a disease. Things do change as we get older, but it's not a disease. So let's talk about some of the declines, though, that can happen if we're not taking preventative measures. So this is what we got for bone loss. Women lose up to 20% of their bone mass in the first 5 to 7 years after menopause. 20% of our bone mass, boop, goes away. 5 to 7, up to 5 to 7 years after menopause because of the drastic shift in hormones. Bone density already starts decreasing 1%, about 1% per year after the age of 30 if we're not loading our bones, if we're not weightlifting. So we're consistently losing bone density if we're not doing anything about it. And then as soon as we hit menopause, it's just boop, we lose 20%. 1 in 2 women over the age of 50 will experience an osteoporosis related fracture. 50% of women over the age of 50 will have osteoporosis and then break something because of that. I heard from an ortho surgeon. She's super passionate about weightlifting. She's in Orlando, and she talks about how she's worked on female patients before. Their bones are like mush. She can barely do the procedure to help with the fracture because the bones are so mushy. I talked to my client about it in her 70s who lifts weights, or almost in her 70s. Her mom is in her 90s, and she was saying the same when her mom fell and needed support after she broke her fracture. Her bones were so soft, the doctor said I could have pushed my finger through it. That is not good. That is not good for so many reasons. So we need to make sure we support our bone density. Muscle loss, let's talk about that. So muscle loss can actually begin as early as the age of 30, and then it starts to accelerate after menopause. Okay, things really start to shift after menopause. They say men will age more on a linear basis, and women, we are aging more linear, and then around perimenopause and menopause, it just things start to age very quickly after that point. So again, the things we're doing now today, or even if you're postmenopausal, still very important. So without resistance training, without good progressive overload training, we lose anywhere from 3 to 8% of muscle per decade after the age of 30. That's a lot. After the age of 30. So we also lose up to 15% per decade after the age of 60. So rapid declines after the age of 60. So important to take care of your strength, especially after 60. So strength loss is actually even steeper. So we have muscle, we have the muscle in our body, and then we have strength. So while muscle loss starts going down after 30 if we don't do anything about it, important for a lot of different reasons, strength loss is even steeper. So our strength will drop off anywhere from 10 to 15% per decade. Okay, so strength and muscle and bone are just slowly coming down. And when we lose that strength, that is what impacts our function more than just muscle. So that's even more important in terms of a functional framework that we really want to make sure we are not decreasing in strength. Let's talk about fall risk. So fall risk are the leading cause of injury-related death and hospitalization in older adults. When I worked in therapy, that was the biggest thing we would see. Sometimes we get some trauma patients from, major car accidents, sometimes some domestic abuse cases, those sort of things, a traumatic brain injury, but a lot of the people, the vast majority, were people who had fallen. They were over 60 and they fell, and that was that. And sometimes after that fall, they stay in nursing facilities after that, even in their 60s. So women are actually affected more than men here. We have higher rates of falls and fractures because of the bone density issues that we go through. And one fall doubles your risk of falling again. I have seen that time and time again, working physical therapy. We see the same patients come back. We discharge them. They look all good in terms of their functional goals. We discharge them and then they fall again. A lot of them don't want to use their assisted devices either. If we send them home with a walker, a lot of the time we don't feel like we need it. We feel like we're better than we really are, then we fall, and it's a whole thing. So fall risk definitely is a really, really big thing. Falls are the leading cause of traumatic brain injuries in women over 65. I've worked with many patients with traumatic brain injuries. Don't fall, please. That's one of my main things working with women of any age, of really clients of any age, is making sure they can get up and down off the ground and do so without hands. Let's talk about fat gain and metabolism. So women tend to gain a pound or two of fat every year after the age of 30. It's that slow creep, and that happens for many different reasons. But one of those main reasons is because we start to lose that lean mass, which helps our metabolism, and also we start to develop those hormonal shifts, which also good nutrition and strength training can help with. So when our muscle comes down and we get that muscle loss of that 3 to 8% every decade, then our resting metabolic rate will also decline with that. So there is nothing that actually works to boost our metabolism like having muscle on our body. So when you hear about all these teas and this supplement over here, there is nothing in the research that really points to anything boosting our metabolism in the same way that muscle does. Just put muscle on your frame and you'll be okay. So let's talk about a couple of the risks and consequences of these declines. So again, fall risk is a big one. Difficulty with basic tasks when we start to lose our muscle and bone loss, not able to get up and down the stairs very easily. Maybe you're experiencing some of these things already. Again, that medical risk, the hip fractures, we start to become very frail very quickly. We won't even notice it, but it just this kind of gradual experience of like, oh, I don't feel as strong as I used to. That is so common. I hear that all the time with women over 40. We get postural changes. One is called kyphosis, where we start to round over and we turn into a little cashew nut. So kyphosis will often happen because of this bone loss and this muscle loss. Our balance decreases. Let me tell you a quick story about one of my clients who's over 60. She had a little like koi pond in her backyard, and she actually had vision problems already. Side story, she ate ground beef raw as a child, is that wasn't so unusual back then. And it was a parasite, and the parasite apparently went into her eye and then it died and it gave her like a blind spot. Don't eat raw ground beef. Anyway, so she had a little bit of deficit in her vision anyway. And we worked on that by really helping her feel more stable in her body and building her strength and her coordination to kind of overcompensate for that. But she was in her koi pond and she was reaching over to feed the koi. And in her koi pond, there's a very beautiful koi pond with all these jagged rocks. And she was on one foot, kind of leaning forward. She lost her balance as she was doing the little food and almost fell face first into jagged rocks in her koi pond. But we had practiced single leg deadlifts is what it's called, where we were doing loaded single leg deadlifts where she was standing on one leg, leaning over with a weight. So her brain and her body knew this position, and she was immediately able to redirect herself back and save herself from going forward. I had another client in her 70s. She had two bulldogs and they were running down a hill because they love the sprinkler systems across the street. So they were running down the hill and she's running at 7-year-old woman running after them to catch. It was in the morning here in Florida. She slipped on the grass because it was wet. She lands in a push-up position because we've been practicing push-ups. She lands in a push-up position, pushes herself back up and continues running after those dogs. So balance is important, coordination is important, speed is important. All of these things are things that we can do to counteract these age-related declines. Okay. All right, enough stories on that. So the other thing is with muscle mass, we often think of muscle mass maybe as just a vanity thing. Muscle mass, higher muscle mass is also linked to a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, lower risk of cardiovascular disease, lower risk of osteoporosis. Building muscle is also really great for brain health. We actually had a client who was super into brain health, and so she loved weight training because of the benefits from weight training to brain health. All right, so let's now talk about the antidote. The antidote to this decline. Okay, we're all going to be aging. We're aging right now as the minutes pass. So what can we do about it? Progressive overload training is going to be the gold standard for reversing or slowing these declines, progressive overload training. That means, in essence, consistently challenging your muscles with gradual increases in resistance and or intensity over time. It is not random, okay? So progressive overload training isn't muscle confusion. We're done with that word. We don't need muscle confusion. We actually need more structured training. Progressive overload training can almost look boring on paper. It's not random strength classes. It's not random YouTube videos of doing strength work. You could get somewhere. That's not to say those things won't get you strong. The body's going to adapt, especially if you're deconditioned and you're going and you're doing these fitness classes, right? That's still great. You're going to get some result. But typically in those classes, you're only using somewhere around 3 to 10 pound weights, sometimes up to 15 pounds, and we'll limit ourselves to be like, oh, I'm over 50, I don't need much weight. That is not true. That is not true. The 7-year-old who's running after bulldogs was deadlifting over 90 pounds with a barbell. So we can't see ourselves as frail, right? That we're stronger than somebody over time that can lift more than, say, 5 or 10 pounds. So in essence, those fitness classes, the random stuff that we're doing, it's not progressive in the way that we need it to really objectively and subjectively, we'll start to feel stronger as well, but objectively see progress in our strength. All my clients know that I'm all up on their business about tracking your reps and your sets and your weight so we can see, are you actually making progress? Because we should be able to track that. Okay, so here are some really solid and manageable strength targets for women to hit. Before we jump into it, the secret word of this episode is cheese. The secret word for this episode to get 10% off with 8 words is cheese. Okay, so these are excellent strength targets for women under 50 to hit. I'm going to go through several of these. You might not know the exercises. I'll describe some of them. One is to do 3 dead hang pull-ups. 3 dead hang pull-ups for women under 50. And this could take a while. We call this your training career. So when we talk about weightlifting, progressive overload training, this is something you can just maintain for decades, training a few days a week. It's just it just becomes part of who you are. That's how you hit these strength targets and you do not decline the way that a lot of other people do, because it does take consistency, but really I think what goes on too is that we don't really know how to do this in a sustainable way. So then people are just like, it's too much work, I don't know how to do it. It doesn't have to be that complicated, I'm telling you. So strength targets: 3 dead hang pull-ups, so that means overhand pull-ups, 8 push-ups from the ground, not on the knees, so full push-ups on hands and toes, deadlift 150% of your body weight, so more than your body weight, a single leg deadlift, so the exercise I described in my client in her 60s, single leg deadlift with 60% of your body weight. So if you're, say, 170 pounds, that would be a single leg deadlift with 102 pounds, just for reference. Single arm press with 30% of your body weight. So if you're 160, you probably be able to get to a 48-pound press. That might sound insane to you. So just for reference, I start women when I work with them with a 15-pound overhead press, and then they get up to a 25 press, and then they get up to a 35-pound press. And this also doesn't mean you have to get to these numbers. These are just numbers that are possible to just give yourself a little bit of perspective. You can get up to swinging a kettlebell, where you swing the kettlebell in between your legs, 60% of your body weight. Double front squat, so that's a kettlebell in each hand, front squatting with 60% of your weight total. A Turkish get up, you might not know, but you're on your back and you have a weight over your head and you're coming all the way up off the ground. Doing a Turkish get up with 30% of your body weight. A single arm snatch, which is where you take the kettlebell underneath through your legs and snatch it up over your head with 40% of your weight. So those are all possible goals. If you're focused on them, then you could reach them, and without getting injured as well. That's a big thing too. We think that weightlifting has such a high injury risk. We know more than ever about how to lift well. I call strength training therapeutic strength training, especially my background in physical therapy, but it should be therapeutic. If it's making you feel more beat up or giving you higher injuries, then something's not right, either with technique, either with volume, intensity. Something needs to change there. All right, women over 50. Here are some targets. 3 inverted rows, which means you have a bar and you're horizontal, and then you're rowing to the bar, so your feet are extended. 15-second hold on a pull-up bar. 15-second hold, no feet on a bench or anything. 5 push-ups, not girl push-ups. I hate the phrase girl push-ups. My instructor said that this weekend too. He said, let's not call these girl push-ups anymore. 5 full push-ups on your toes, deadlifting your body weight, single leg deadlift with 40% of your body weight, single arm press with 20% of your body weight, swinging a kettlebell that's half of your body weight, double front squatting 40% of your body weight, Turkish get up with 20% of your body weight. I've had many, many clients that have hit these targets. If we're focused on these targets, this is totally possible. And single arm snatch with 20% of your body weight. So those are just some targets that maybe they excite you, maybe they kind of overwhelm you. That you can decide how strong you get as well, as long as you're progressing. As long as you're continuing to progress, could be small progressions, but as long as you're progressing, you're doing okay. That means that the body is adapting. Okay. So, evidence-based strategies. Lifting 2 to 3 times a week. Most of my women will lift 3 days a week. How I like to program my training is about 2 days are a little bit heavier and harder, and then 1 day is a little bit easier. So it'll be more body weight, more bands, and I'm really hitting it a lot harder on those 2 heavy days. So about 2 to 3 days a week. And lifting just 2 to 3 days a week can increase that bone mineral density in both peri and postmenopausal women. Again, it doesn't take a lot of time necessarily. Women also who strength train regularly are 40% less likely to become disabled in life. Strength training can literally save your life. It is preventative medicine is what we call it. So we can increase your metabolism and aid in fat loss with building muscle. We can get better blood sugar regulation. We can have improved mental health, improved sleep. You can have fewer injuries over time if it's a therapeutic strength training protocol. So again, these age-related declines we talked about, they are not inevitable. You have so much more control and you can do it. Okay? So this is a quick episode. I'm getting quicker at my episodes. So if you are interested in weightlifting and having everything set up for you, that you don't have to think about what exercises do I have to do? How am I supposed to eat? We didn't talk much about nutrition on this one. Protein intake is extremely important as well. Eating, I've said this in other episodes, 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is going to be optimal. Some women sometimes eat a little bit more, but it can be really tricky. It doesn't have to be meat either as protein, but making sure your macros are solid as well is very important. Making sure you're eating enough. I did another episode on eating more food, even if you have weight loss goals. So your nutrition is very key as well. Making sure you're getting enough carbohydrates, not weightlifting while you're on super keto. So there's a method to the madness, so to speak, in terms of your nutrition and your training. So if that's of interest for you, you don't want to figure it out all yourself and you just want something that works, it's evidence-based, it's backed by research, it's specifically for women. We have Feminine Strength, which is this weightlifting and nutrition program. I've gotten so much great feedback on it. I feel like I should just do an episode just on the positive stories I've heard. It's been amazing. So it's 3 times a week at home, just with kettlebells and bands, where you work on things like Turkish get-ups and swings and deadlifts and presses, and you can be a complete beginner starting. So we start with really good programming. So I don't just, throw clients into a single leg deadlift. The first month is unloaded completely because we just need to be able to safely control our body through space. We need to know how to stabilize under load, how to use our feet during lifting, how to breathe during lifting to help increase intra-abdominal pressure and increase safety of the spine. We need to learn the mechanics of how to hinge properly. So we're not just creating more strain on our spine, right? When people say deadlifts are dangerous, bad deadlifts are dangerous, or poorly executed deadlifts are dangerous. We need to look at how is the volume of the training. Are we training too much? We see that a lot. Women at the gym 4 or 5 days a week. Some of them can handle that volume, but it depends on how many sets they're doing every week. It depends on their overall intensity. The women coming in also love that we sync their menstrual cycle to their training. So I only lift 9 times out of the month because I take a whole week off for luteal phase because I don't feel like lifting. And I still get stronger because I'm tracking and I objectively see my strength getting better. I actually feel better when I come back and lift after that week that I took off. So we actually can sync the training to the monthly cycle. So we waive intensities to avoid injury risk, to avoid burnout, and to also help with consistency. So we don't feel like we're constantly having to lift week in and week out. Okay, I get a little break. So it's also a little bit of a mental break. So if you're interested in a training and nutrition program there, specifically for women, you can go to rebuildingbody.com/feminine strength. We'll have a lot more information. We do weekly classes, we do bonuses, we do one-on-one work in it, we do customization of everything. It's quite comprehensive. Occasionally also, I'll just mention this in this episode, we do a 4-week commitment only. It's a 6-month program, but occasionally we will have people come in for just 4 weeks, which has gone really, really well as well. So if you book a call and you mention the 4-week commitment, I'll let you know if that's available at the moment, but that worked really well in the past as well. And I'll end with this quote: "The best time to start lifting was 10 years ago. The second best time is today." I really liked that quote. That is so true. You're never too old to lift weights. I say on one of my bios, I've been helping people get stronger from the age of 9 to over 99. Even if you have injuries or pain, I say strength is for everybody. So hope that was informative. Hope that was a little bit motivating or inspiring for you. You have more control than you think, probably in terms of your aging. And hope this episode was good for you. And I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye guys.